Hello, everyone. I bring to you an epic game. This is definitely a sea versus air kind of big battle. It was definitely a spectacle to follow, and I'm very pleased to now be able to bring it to you. I've been wanting to for a long time because this game ended in February, it seems like. So yeah, a good couple of months ago. Oh, actually, forgot to put it on the screen. There you go. So this was an insane match. It was from the round one finals of the Glenstorm Cup 1, and we have two very top players. It is High Funds, and we have a very special guest here to also help us go through the match in itself, because there was a lot of intricacies and stuff. So welcome, Kilmefirst. Thank you for being here.
Hello, and thanks for having me.
Thank you for being here. It's always nice to get some in depth, and yeah, I'm happy to go through this match. Honestly, it was a crazy one, I gotta say.
I tend to agree. Yeah, this was maybe one of the wildest games I've had in maybe even since then. So
Yeah, and the map itself, it's pretty wild, right? Like, I was looking at it today just to get a refresher, and it was like there's a lot going on. It's a mixed base. You got 4 bases. You got your 2 base setup here and 2 lonely base over here. You got 1 airport safe in the 2 base, which you can break the pipe seam to make it go faster. You have more airports in the corners and this other semi-corner middle. I guess sort of as a supportive to the lone bases, which you would have to access with a black boat from the port or a T-copter, but it would be pretty tricky. And then you have 2 labs per player. You got these rockets also just like locking down I guess the labs, and also the pre-owned city and a few other cities. I guess also maybe the naval space in the middle. I wasn't super sure today when I was looking at why the rockets are there, but I guess it has to do with some stuff like that. The map is called Keeper of Dreams, I think, made by Walker, and this is definitely a Walker map if I've ever seen one.
yeah, and I actually did a handful of practice games on this map because just maybe I felt very similar. The first couple times I looked at it, I was like, "What is going on?" Just I have no idea where the fighting's supposed to happen. I don't know what the contested anything is. It's mixed base, so it could just be like everything's contested. And so I did a couple practice games, and I have the notes that I took from even before the match itself, as I was doing those games, that I saved since then.
Yeah.
So I can flip through a couple of those if you want to hear the highlights of like my pregame findings.
Sure. Like to mention them right now before the match.
Yeah.
Okay, let's do it.
Yeah. So when I was looking at it, this was tier 2 for High Funds, which is usually like a Sturm or Max tier, depending on the terrain and how good airports are. Drake is also allowed in this format, or in this tier. I'm not a huge fan just because of how strong air units are in High Funds, but global damage is still global damage, and High Funds global damage is crazy. And then I guess this tier also technically gets Andy and Von Bolt, but they're not as exciting. Andy is in the max tier, so basically doesn't exist. And then Von Bolt is probably just worse because he doesn't really have a power to speak of. And all the other COs have you either have Drake and Max with really strong powers, or Sturm with broken movement.
Yeah. I
So
mean,
I was
Von
on-
Bolt has its own. His super still comes into play, in High Funds, but yeah, it's not as strong as maybe other ones. But.
Yeah, and on maps where there's a lot of High Funds have good transport play, and even here there's a lot of naval. Like you can just build a battleship that you probably already want, and then that just magnets the super for a turn. And for that reason, like Sturm also kind of doesn't have a power in this game. It does matter a little bit towards the end, but it's not the best power. Like Drake definitely has the stronger powers and superpower. Max powers are probably really strong on this map because there's so many airports.
True.
But Drake wasn't really on my radar. I think it was partly because there's 6 airports on this map, and so there's just so many copters going to be flying around, and it's also mixed base, and so I imagine there was going to be a lot more early fighting and maybe smaller army sizes, even for high funds. And so I wasn't super keen on Drake. But so the choice for me was between Max and Sturm.
Mm-hmm.
The Max is almost exclusively because there's so many airports. And just like build 3 battlecopters a turn and other vehicles, and that's a game plan.
Yeah.
For Sturm, there was a lot more options in terms of you get your airport a turn faster because there's that mountain that blocks the airport entry. And so if you're a non-Sturm, you have to take an entire extra turn to get that safe airport on the side.
Oh, this one.
Yeah. And Sturm also gets really strong recons. And there's not a ton of heavy terrain that Sturm is cheating through, except around the 2 base. And so if you look around the 2 base, there's lots of forests around there. And that makes the rollout for recons especially, but even for tanks, a good bit slower from the area that you should be strongest.
Mm-hmm.
And so Sturm gets a lot of faster rollout there. And if you look at the maybe range of a recon from each of the 2 base, it hits contestable properties in a single turn, right? I think you can hit either of the ports from a on-by.
Yeah, you can hit this port, you can hit this city, but yeah, specifically the port is super strong.
Right. And one of the other things that I noticed that I saw a couple tricks in since this was the finals. It wasn't like there were a ton of games going on. There were no other Division 1 games that I could spy on. So I looked at I looked at like Division 2 games. I was like, all right, well, in addition to the games I'm playing, like what are other people doing on this map? And there was one airport locking trick that I loved. I was like, I didn't think about that at first. I maybe would have come up with it, but as soon as I saw that, I was like, all right, I'm doing this. And this was probably the reason that I chose Sturm, was for this one specific airport lock. Mm-hmm. And if you look at the bottom center airport,
this one,
yeah, so that's Drake's airport in this game. Drake builds a black boat, it moves 1 turn, moves a 2nd turn, drops it off, 3rd turn starts capping, 4th turn finishes capping. So on black boat build, after 4 turns, it'll cap that. If you place an artillery right under the comm tower, it can reach that airport.
Yeah.
And so I saw someone place an artillery there, and I forget exactly how the game went. I don't even think they managed to deny it. It was like a turn too slow. But you can actually wait until your opponent builds a black boat, and then that next turn you build an artillery, and it beats the infantry there. Right, so the black boat drops off on the 2nd turn, and then you put the artillery there on the 2nd turn, they start capping, and then you can interrupt.
Yeah, makes sense.
And so there's almost no way to get that airport unless they have real strong control of that bottom region before they even try to capture it.
I mean, you don't necessarily have to be Sturm though for that, right? You can use any CO.
Yep.
But yeah, that definitely is a nice arty lock right there.
Yep. So the reason that Sturm comes, well, that just means that like I don't want to play Max because Max can't do the artillery
Oh.
lock. Yeah.
Yeah,
But,
yeah. It makes sense. Makes sense.
yep. The other reason for Sturm is that if you look at the other weak base airport, so the top right corner here, that one's also not super easy to get as purple. So the all the way in the top right corner.
Mm.
Because again, they have to capture the airport, or they have to capture the port, build a black boat. It's 2 moves to get to the airport, drop it off, and then they can start capturing.
Mm-hmm.
Because Sturm gets the airport, his 2-base airport faster, that means you can build a really fast battlecopter, and unless Drake here like turbos out the black boat, you can actually beat it to the airport with your copter. So you can have a copter just sit on the airport or interrupt the infantry that's trying to capture, and you can do that. There is some chance that, again, if you like skip to the port first and you build a black boat really early and you rush right there, that you can still beat it. I forget the exact timings. But even in that case, there's a world where the recon, again, can interrupt the port capture, right? Because you can send one on by to interrupt that port. You can even just throw an infantry or a recon on the shoal to like stand in front and like body block the black boat for a turn. So there's a lot of things you can do to even deny that corner airport as well. And so that was mostly my game plan for going into this was, okay, I'm going to pick Sturm. I'm going to deny those 2 airports. And the reason that denying those is so important is that in high funds, when you have these weak bases, these like lone bases, you so often get put in a situation where every turn you're looking at like a couple battlecopters and a couple tanks, maybe some heavy tanks, but even just that, like tanks plus copters, they have to make a decision, right? Do I buy an anti-air so I can kill the copters, or do I buy a heavier tank so I can handle the tanks and don't just lose the base?
Right.
And
yeah,
so
you also end up always just buying vehicles every single turn from that lonely base.
yeah,
So your infantry becomes so precious. You can have like 2 or 3 infantry, and then you're never making any more, pretty much.
right. Yeah, and so my whole game plan on this map was to sort of break the map and just say, all right, you're going to have to play 1 base defense without an airport. Mm-hmm. I'm also going to have to play 1 base defense, but I have an airport, and so now every turn I can build a heavy tank plus a copter, so my copters hit yours, my heavy tanks hit your tanks, and I'm sort of able to hold that, whereas yours is eventually just going to fall.
Right. Okay. So your main strategy was like, okay, I'm going to deny the airports from Talos, which would be this one and this one, while securing yours, I guess, and then try to have that upper hand.
Yep. And again, securing my own airports was not guaranteed. Like you mentioned, Drake can also do the artillery lock on my northern airport. I can also get blocked in and denied from my bottom left airport. Mm-hmm. And so, yeah, that was my game plan, was to deny those while also capturing mine. And just about everything I do in the first, I don't know, half dozen turns are towards that goal.
Right. Half dozen, like your first 6 turns?
Yeah, so like first like 6 or 7 turns, there's a lot of small decisions I'm making that are making sure that those things are going to happen, that I'm going to get my airports and that Talos is not going to get his airports.
Right. Okay. Any other note that you wanted to bring up, or should I just slowly get into it and we can talk about that?
I guess one more random note, like looking back on the map, if this ever ends up like I think that Drake might have actually been the better choice here, and that I just super underestimated the super damage, the fuel drain. There's so many things going on with just high funds and global damage in general.
Yeah.
It's kind of, I don't know. I guess we can jump right into it, but yeah, like the fact that I didn't consider Drake at all, I think was maybe a mistake.
I mean, it's like global damage is strong in on itself, and then you add high funds to it, and that super just comes literally at a certain point when you get to a mid game. It's like every single turn or every other turn you're getting hit by that global damage, and also in a mixed base scenario where it can easily get so brawly, one global damage turn with a big attack with a big brawl is definitely not what you want against the global damage. And I think it's also funny because this is a really interesting matchup too, like Sturm and Drake. Definitely Drake is the more stallier, like should be more comfortable if you guys are like sitting at equal income and and just like stalling it out. He'll be fine because what we were saying, like that super is so strong. You can't escape it. You can't bait the global damage like you can bait Sturm's meteors. There's that element too.
Yeah, if the game ever ends up at some form of parity, I'm pretty sure Drake just wins.
Yeah.
So I almost can't let it get to that point.
Yeah, you're definitely the aggressor here.
Yep. So even for this first, so now we're on day 2, and there's a couple things I want to point out right away. So Talos is going for the port early on the top right. I think that's very smart because you're sitting right next to my 2 base. It's really easy for me to build some early recon, so you want to get that as soon as possible. And then you'll also notice I'm going for my airport, basically the first chance I have, right? I capturing my second base with my first infantry, second infantry, going straight for that airport. I do make some concessions on my single bases, right? I'm not rushing my bottom port right away. I'm not expecting Drake to be the aggressor here, so I can delay that for a turn. I do rush the top port just because there's really not as much to capture up there. There's like a couple properties, and after you get the city next to that base and that port, and like maybe one of the ones next to the lab, everything else is kind of contested because you're going to be looking at 2 base vehicles and infantries piling in.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think on this turn, do I actually buy the recon?
You buy a recon here.
Yeah.
You don't even buy an infantry on this base. The first thing you buy is a freaking recon.
Yep. Well, so I bought an infantry last turn, right? That one's going towards the airport. But yeah,
okay.
This recon, it does 2 things. It threatens to hit the bottom port on buy. He's not in range to capture it, but like I can already start threatening the bottom. But I was always planning on sending this top. So my goal, again, the bottom airport I can deny for quote unquote for free because I can just buy the artillery and place it in range. The top one is a little trickier. I do need to slow stuff down on the top. And so this one's always planning to go north to that base. It can't interrupt right away, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to buy a second recon so I can have sort of a 2v1 against the infantry. Even though it finishes capturing the port, it just gets destroyed or close to it.
You're going to go for the classic Sturm recon spam. You can't hit, like, if Talos buys a tank and you have multiple recons, a tank can only hit one recon at a time, right?
Yep. And it did in some sense bait the tank being built bottom, and I don't think it's wrong to build it there, right? You kind of need to ward off the recons somewhere, everywhere probably.
I actually wasn't sure why Talos bought this recon down here, because this recon wasn't really threatening anything just yet.
Yeah, I think it's because of what you just mentioned, that a single tank can't fight 2 recons. And so he was trying to prepare so that he could have 2 tanks versus 2 recons, but all that meant is that he couldn't have that on the northern base. And so I got to exploit that a little bit.
Now you're gonna go for that port.
Yep.
And you got more recons. This is also like really slowing down your captures from the 2 base. Like it definitely comes at a cost. So
Yes, yeah,
that
and
gets pretty
we'll
tricky.
actually notice that a little later. So I'll bring it up at some point, but there is a cost to buying lots of recons like this.
Yeah, for sure. Especially because there is quite a few captures that you need. I guess not that many, but it is definitely slowing it down.
Yep. And I've also got. I actually don't know if I agree with the recon I bought in the bottom left. Looking back at this, because one of the things that I want in the bottom left, and the next couple turns we'll see this play out a little bit. I do need control of that region, right? I can't just buy an artillery and just put it there and it'll work. If Talos has a couple tanks in the area, then this whole plan sort of falls apart. So
Yeah.
I need control of this region, which buying the recon there doesn't contribute to at all. I think my idea was like I can interrupt some of the stuff on the left into the 2 base, which doesn't feel great. But yeah.
I think maybe like there was this guy that was in this base. Wait, actually, was he not there? Oh yeah, he was right here. So
Yeah, so like threatens the
it was sort
stops
of yeah, I was interrupting like this city, I guess.
yeah, that's fine, I guess. I
But
don't know
yeah,
that fighting.
the problem is the tank there from Talos going now towards the left. It's now putting pressure over here, and if this was instead a tank, then you could ward this tank off a little bit better. But now this tank is like stopping this infantry from capturing any of these. Well, I guess you're getting forced to buy a tank, but you to go for this one because you can't go for this city now, for example. So
Yeah, and I think the real cost here, because I don't know if I could have afforded the tank last turn, but it probably cuts into a vehicle buy at some point.
I think, yeah, I think you could. You had 9K extra. Before the
Yeah,
start of
that
the
probably
tank.
should have just been a tank. I guess I was just thinking this interrupts that city, but I don't want to fight over that city like I can't fight over that in any long-term sense, right? That's one turn from both of those bases, so that
You
was a
just
little
got
ambitious.
too Sturmy. You got you got
Yeah,
too much
well,
into the Sturm mentality.
yeah.
We'll see if there's gonna be more recons. But yeah, there you go. You're gonna capture this, and you actually. So this is something that I was looking at. You have these 2 recons, and there is a tank, which is just in time to protect the captures. And you are actually going to send them in to hit at both, so as to get damage. With again the thing of like can't hit at all of them. But here, this is something that I don't understand why you did this. Why did you put this recon right here? It's like
Yeah,
in range
so
of the
that
tank.
Yep, it's in range of the tank, but that recon is covered by my tank. The recon can also, so if you check the range from here, it stops the Talos infantry from being in range of that next city to capture.
Okay.
So he'd either have to like pull his tank back to block or hit my recon, which puts it in range of my tank. But that recon actually stops the infantry from getting in range of capturing that city. So
Yeah, it makes sense. Because you would have to put it right here. You can hit it. Yeah, because then you offer the option. Because I was like, you can just hit this or hit this, and like yeah, it's protected by the tank. But I don't know. I couldn't find a reason for why this recon was particularly in this spot. I thought maybe I guess it's impossible to block this tank from interrupting, unless it could have gone here. So this one hits from the road, so then you can hit from the forest. But if it's here, then you can't do what you said of hitting that infantry.
yeah,
Interesting.
I think it was mostly that should have never been a recon. I don't know. I just didn't really have anything for it to do.
True.
It's also maybe worth noting that I go after, instead of like double hitting the port infantry, I hit that infantry in the top lefts to basically deny every other capture in that region, right? Like that infantry goes down, I get to either finish it off or hit the other healthy infantry next turn. And so now Talos has almost no hope of getting any of those center properties for a good while.
Yeah, exactly. And this tank is gonna be like your anti-air chasing copters. You know, it's gonna be trying to swat. I think is the
Yeah.
verb. It flies. You know, it's like there's too many recons, and now that there's gonna be a tank coming, it's gonna be really tricky. Plus these infantry moving over here, and you can always like if he hits one, then you'll have the other one healthy to hit the other healthy infantry. And this is good damage, like 5 HP, 6 HP. This means that instead of 3 turns, it takes 4 turns to capture. So, and high funds is even more valuable because that's 2k per turn. So it's really tricky.
Yep. Yeah, and so pretty expected hit here. There's now 2 tanks built here, and this is also good for me because again, I'm trying to deny that top airport. Even if Talos builds a black boat this turn, or even next turn, there's no infantry, right? There's no healthy infantry. If he drops off an injured infantry at the airport, that just gives me another turn to get there to interrupt with a copter. So all these tanks being built means it's much less likely to get the to get that airport.
True.
One thing to note is that the sort of the converse of that is that in the bottom left of the map, I'm now have my one base staring at 2 tanks. So now I have to actually worry about getting blocked and getting the black boat through.
Oh, you really needed that tank, huh?
Yeah. Yes. Yeah, and so even now on that bottom left area, I need to start thinking about pivoting to like defense mode. How do I get a black boat through?
Yeah, true. Yeah, because it's super easy to block these shells, right? And then you made the black boat, but it's like, whoop, can't get through.
Yep.
And if the 2 base decides to invest on here, then he can easily permanently deny that access.
Yeah. And so for this next turn, I have a pretty restricted turn because I also want to buy the battle copter this turn. So I have like 2 things I really want to buy: the black boat in the bottom left, the battle copter, and I also want to buy a tank in the bottom left so that I can fight. I can have enough tanks to clear out that little river passage.
These rockets in the middle. They're just sitting there for now. Oh, you actually go and hit that tank.
Yes, and the reason I did that is because Sturm, I don't think can 2-hit KO a tank on a shoal, like 2 tanks versus a tank on a shoal, if it's at full HP.
Wow.
And so I had to hit that tank so that between the 8 HP and the new tank I just built, even if he tries to block, I can KO it.
Okay. So your thing was you were like really invested in him not blocking these tiles. That's very fair.
And you'll see maybe why I was thinking that in a turn or 2. So like I was fighting against that, and there was a reason that was like very clear in my mind, and I was like, I need to make sure that this doesn't happen.
I wonder if Talos was actually thinking that, or you're just like, it's very easy to get into that. You kind of set these little objectives for them not to do a certain thing, but you never know if they were actually planning on doing so or not.
Yeah, there's all kinds of like outgaming yourself, right? You want to play at 1 level more than your opponent.
Yeah.
And if you go too much more than that, you actually start taking worse moves for contingencies that you don't need.
And there you go. You get what you were saying, the copter and black boat. So I guess you're definitely guaranteeing that this black boat is going to be able to get all the way over here, so guaranteeing the airport because now this guy's injured. But you would also be like, say if Talos really wants to do that, puts the tank here, uses this tank to attack you here, then that would be a free hit here. So that's just some damage that you would have to assume. And
yeah.
You're gonna get hit there. Your other recon died over here.
No, it scooted away.
Oh, you're right, yeah. Oof. Yeah,
That's the
that's
other
a
thing that
fast recon.
Sturm recons do really well is they'll take a shot and get hit by a tank and then just leave.
Yeah, they're slippery. And there goes Talos' black bolt now.
Yep.
So we'll
Yep.
see
But
if you.
again, there's only a 6 HP infantry, so if you like count turns from here, I think I actually get there in time if nothing else happens for the copter to interrupt the infantry trying to cap the airport. I'm gonna like hedge my bets a little more because again, just like I was worried about a tank blocking the river, now I can look at this and say, well, I can just toss a tank on the river and then guarantee. So now I don't have to worry about killing the infantry as it captures the airport. I can just park the copter on the airport. I can just get it there first.
Yeah, so in 3 turns you reach here, the adjacent tiles of the airport. I was thinking Talos can make an infantry. Let's see if he does. Okay, he makes a tank. Okay, so that is just even more of a guarantee that you can deny this. Because if this was an infantry, he could move the black bolt here and brings a new infantry. Well, I mean, it's like this. No, right? Makes an infantry, you move the copter, brings the infantry here with the black bolt, then the copter gets closer to this mountain, say. Then he loads off the infantry here, and you can still shoot at it. Well, I guess you would have to put it here on this plains, and then you can reach to hit the infantry. Or you can get another turn because he starts capping, and then you can interrupt it. And there's no tiles adjacent to hit it with a anti-air. You'd have to make a missiles.
Yeah, so I actually did consider the missiles and whether or not that would be worth it. I was actually more worried about just random units blocking, because even though it's all surrounded by water over there, you can like toss. Talos could put some tanks on the shoals or on the plains over there to block my copter from getting through. And so I'm pretty sure I would have just won this race of, copter versus black boat. But I wanted to hedge my bets and make sure that, nothing funny would happen.
So here you do something funny. Oh, I thought you were going to put the tank somewhere here. As you were saying that, just to like block. Oh, I guess you can because it will get 2 KO, right?
That might have been a little bit of a spoiler for next turn. And mostly because there's no infantry to pick up here, right? So I'm not super worried about the black boat rushing out of range and getting to the airport because it'll only be 6 HP.
Look at, you see that? The moonwalk.
Yeah.
The moonwalking black boat. And then you go over here, you kind of pull back, set up a little of a defense because everything is kind of well defended. Got these 2 tanks coming.
Yeah, and so here, the in the bottom left, the fact that so now I have, I think I'm pretty set to deny the top right. Like that part's fine.
Mm-hmm.
The bottom center airport, there's still 2 tanks sitting there. Like I can't put an artillery there, right? I have to sort of shoo away those tanks. And so my game plan here is to just build enough tanks that I can just run at them and scare them away. And then I think at this point, yeah, so I'm building a recon in the top left as well. That top left recon, his whole goal is to either stop some of these contested captures on the left or deny the comm tower. Because that's sort of a sort of secondary goal I've set for myself is, I don't want Drake to ever have a comm tower. Right? We're both going to have terrible copters and air units. And maybe I'll get my comm tower eventually, but we're just going to try to hard deny your comm tower in addition to both airports.
Yeah, I guess also if you get to have both comm towers in an ideal scenario, then you'd have 100 firepower, which would be the same as Drake's tanks and stuff, but with extra defense, right? So.
Yep. Yeah, and if I can just deny that comm tower just long enough to get my top airport online, then it just becomes almost impossible to capture, right? You're staring at that airport, and the recons on by interrupt the comm tower. So
true. Yeah. Look at that. That's disgusting.
Yep.
I
And
guess
so,
it's almost mostly shows, but there's these forests.
yeah, there's a couple other there's a couple things to note that Talos did on this turn. So he finally
Yeah.
bought the bottom left air, the bottom right black boat, and
Yeah, but he put it here instead
so
of
there's
like over here.
right. So there's the reason for that is that it still reaches the airport, and now it can pick up the healthy infantry.
Okay.
Because I don't think this shows Drake extra movement. Is that right?
Yeah, it doesn't seem to be showing, yeah. But it does reach
Yeah.
2, 4, 6, 8. So
Yeah.
yeah,
So-
that makes sense. It's for the infantry.
And the second black boat there that's actually a problem for me, and this is because that can just park next to the airport, right? It just follows the first one,
Oh, true.
and now my copter can't get through, and
True.
that's kind of a problem. And so, and then on the bottom right, there's another black boat being bought, and that one's to get the bottom airport, and so this is gonna like trigger. I have to buy an artillery this turn down there so I can get there in time. But in the top, this is the turn where I'm going to do something
Let's see.
a little funky. So
I mean, this match is full of that.
yeah,
So you're gonna get this airport over here in this corner, it looks like, and pretty uncontested. You also go and interrupt this capture in range of the artillery. It's surprising how little damage Sturm does sometimes. It's just-
yeah. But at the same time, I like that recon gets to live,
yeah,
so that's
true.
nice. And this is where I place the tank. And so now tank is blocking the black boat. This is even just looking at this, I kind of like this position because there's now and with the recon there, you can't actually hit that tank from two sides without first moving the black boat that could reach the airport.
Yeah.
Right? You
That's-
either have to
that's really
waste
smart.
waste a tank attack on the recon, and then you definitely can't kill it, or you move the black boat and now you can't reach the airport.
Yeah,
Because I
so-
think there's a small chance that Drake can two-shot the Sturm tank.
Yeah, without a com tower. Yeah, because a forest with 100 firepower is not guaranteed to take out, and natural defense is better than a forest. So, even less reliably, the two tanks can kill this tank. But yeah, you're effectively delaying the airport capture by another turn because he'd have to move the black boat to then get the 2 KO, but he can no longer reach there anymore. So really, really good use there of the mountain and just the terrain in general,
Yeah.
and his
and
own black boat.
Right. Yeah, and the one extra turn there means now that my copter can just park on the shoal, and now that airport's just denied forever.
Yeah, unless he makes some missiles.
Yes. which again I did consider and might have actually been correct at some point.
For sure. I mean, if you ever get this airport, then it can easily get missile locked. But I see now you're building that artillery that you were saying because you see this. You see this black boat that you definitely don't like. This is
Yeah.
not a friendly black boat.
Nope.
And you cannot. So this was interesting that if Talos would have made maybe another tank here instead of an infantry, I don't think he had the funds necessary for it. Maybe he had to like not make this artillery to make another tank, but then he could have maybe had a better position here to ward off this, because now you have 3
Yeah.
tanks against 2 only and no new one, so it's kind of pushing away these tanks, or else they're gonna get first struck.
Yeah, and I
And
think
giving
part
you
of that
the-
was because of Talos had to buy multiple black boats that last turn, and so it's high funds, but it's still early high funds where a black boat is not free.
Right.
At this point, I was also sort of hoping that Talos hadn't watched the game I played against Shock, where I did the same thing. And I was also I was thinking, I'm buying the artillery here. How do I use this in a way that doesn't telegraph what I'm doing with it? And so, even the artillery by itself is maybe in response to his artillery that are coming down. and so like I can secure my properties on the left, and then I think I place it in a way that it's like covering a tank or something. So
here Talos has a nice little setup. Trying to flip your city, got the artilleries coming and locking down. But also, yeah, you kind of like conceded the space, but it makes sense because this is a little bit unstoppable, especially if you're planning to go over here. Oh, he's gonna try to. Okay, that's definitely not a 2 KO. Let's see what he does
and
up
it's
here.
not, and I don't actually hate that interrupt. Like in a vacuum, I think that's good. You stopping infantry captures in high funds is really strong because that's also my only infantry over there.
Yeah, exactly.
But for this specific game, this means that I can now like do the thing kind of for free because now I get to tag that tank, and now I'm like 3 tanks to 2 and an artillery, and so he has to back up a bit, which is all I need.
Yeah, for sure. Because you can hit this guy and bring the artillery, which I think would be out of range. Yeah, you even have the forest. So you can definitely bring the artillery down here, kind of take out this guy, and block this tank from hitting your artillery. So your plan is coming into fruition.
Yep. At this point in the game, I'm also slightly concerned about how I'm going to deal with Drake battleships. This is another... Like, the way you normally deal with battleships is air units, right? Maybe bombers or copters or something. Or like pointing artillery at them. But all of Sturm's units are weaker. And Drake does actually get 25% defense on his land and his boats. And so
and Sturm Air is not very good. It's
right.
Usually you want more land units with Sturm.
Yeah, to like make use of the defense.
Right.
But even just like the firepower penalties here means that you're fighting 55% defensive battleships on ports, and that's
oof. Yeah.
That's hard with 80% attack units.
Yeah. You're probably like you do like 1 damage or 2, it barely scratches.
Yeah. And so this is, I think, why I'm buying some artillery on my strong side. It's also the same reason that Talos is buying artillery from his 2 base. They get to point at these ports very well. Yeah, I buy a battleship there just because the airport's still slow. As fast as I'm getting it, I still need some help.
Yeah, true. It's just a bit too many units. This is definitely gonna like shoo away these units for sure, because you can't fight this even with 2 artillery. So definitely has to back up. Wait for those air units. It's funny because Drake also has really bad air units. I guess you're both in the same, right? Because you both have 20 or 25% natural defense, and both have less 20% in attack in air units. So that air versus naval is ridiculous.
Drake has a slightly easier job with the artillery, just because those can now like hit at closer to normal power. And you see that Drake mirrors the battleship by here.
Yeah.
My copter has parked on its, it's going to probably stay there for a while, right? It's sitting on the shoal in the top right.
Yeah. You're logging there, so you can't jump in. Yep. You're getting this airport as well. You're gonna get this on this turn. But you're also here going to lock this airport as well.
Yep.
There you go.
And because Talos had to back away with the tanks a bit, I can just like put the artillery in its cubby and surrounded by tanks.
Yeah. A single tank here and you're done. I guess this tile is all, because it can reach over here.
Yep.
Perfect. The only thing is that the Sturm artillery doesn't do a lot of damage because Sturm.
Yeah, and there's actually some counterplay here that I didn't expect. And but yeah, one other thing I'll mention. So in the top now, I'm parking the recon on the comm tower. I'm even healing it. And the reason for this is that I need it to not be captured until I have that airport. So I'm just like, it's going to take a tank hit for free,
But
but
it will
he's not going to
live.
be able to start capturing it. Yeah, it'll live. And so if I just deny that for like one or two more turns, then the airport's online and that comm tower never gets captured.
Yeah. Nice. Those Sturm recons are really coming into play, and you're also healing them up. I remember this one was at 3 a few turns ago. This one, well, both of these had already gotten tank shots, or this one got shot by the artillery. So taking good care of those recons.
Yeah. Yep.
And Talos makes a cruiser. Wow.
Yeah, and there were a few turns in here where I think a carrier buy puts me in a pretty bad space because I'm leaning pretty hard on these copters to harass units, and it's one thing to jump onto land to avoid a cruiser, but carriers cover a lot of space.
Oh yeah.
I think I also, so looking at my buys on the previous turn here, the two tank buys there feel really bad because I need something to beat these battleships, and I'm putting a lot of money into tanks, and like I think my plan was have something to beat the anti-airs so then my copters can do work, but it ends up just kind of being wasted money. Those tanks don't really do anything.
Yeah, you're getting into a very much more like wall state sort of stallier scenario, and these tanks are just not gonna cut it. I guess what they could do is do some damage down here because there isn't a lot, and it can force some stuff. But over here, yeah, they can't really do much. They can try to take out this anti-air, but you probably definitely needed a bomber to threaten this battleship.
And I think that was my plan. Was so this turn. One of the other things I like about Sturm on this map is that because you can just like buy this defensive panic battleship that sort of locks down the attack.
Yeah.
It then becomes this game of, okay, you bought a battleship there, I'm just going to go to your other weak base. And there's a lot of forests in between there. And so you'll see that as, Drake doesn't get the free movement, has to trudge through, 2 or maybe 3 forests to pivot. Sturm just sort of zooms through. And
yeah, true.
Can pivot pretty fast. It's also worth noting that Talos bought a second, or at this point, a 4th black boat. And I didn't consider this at all before I saw this turn. And as soon as I saw it, I was like, uh-oh, that's actually really bad for me. Because I can interrupt this infantry, but that second black boat can actually reach that on by.
Yeah.
It's got that extra movement. And so now it can capture as 7 HP.
Yeah.
And so, because you can heal twice, which puts it down to 3. And because he's got 2 more heals next turn, that means I have to KO the infantry. I can't just put it to, even 1 is enough to finish capturing that airport. And then like everything I've been trying to do here falls apart.
Yeah.
And so, and again, I'm Sturm, so things deal less damage. And so the only way to KO this infantry is if I get a power next turn, just for the plus 10 stats.
Is that why you go for these attacks over here?
Yeah, so at this point, yep. So I start playing a lot more aggressively. I'm like, all right, I'm going to take some tank hits on the backswing, but I like have to get my power next turn, so I have to throw some of these attacks in.
You also don't have a comm tower. If you had a comm tower, it could have helped maybe. Not sure what the damage range was there, but yeah, leaving it at 5, he's up to 7, drops it down to 3. And yeah, if you leave it at 1 the next turn, he can just double heal and gets the airport. That's crazy.
Yeah, and I don't remember the exact numbers, but I think it ends up being a roll. Even with the power, but without the power, it can't happen.
This actually helps you a lot because
yes,
this gives you a ton of charge.
Yep. And I had some backup plans. It was like throw copters into anti-air or cruisers, and like I had some sacrifice plays lined up. I didn't need a ton of charge at this point. So and like I've got a bunch of the other thing that Storm Recons do really well is reach something that kills them. Like the Recons can like find their way to enemy tanks really easily.
Ooh.
And I think one of the biggest mistakes I make in this game is over the next couple turns, where for some reason, and I still can't really justify this, but for some reason, I don't buy a battleship in the top left. I have the funds for it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I'm buying anything that's terribly exciting anywhere else on the map that I couldn't just like push back for a turn.
And there's another battleship right here from Talos, which is literally what you were just saying about doing over here.
Right, it's so strong, and you kind of have to buy it, and I just don't.
Yeah, it's crazy because we were just saying how like your force over here is kind of stopped, and then it's like, okay, maybe we'll just pivot downwards to put pressure over here because there's nothing here. Boom, instant buy again, stopping your whole wave of infantry and tanks and artilleries. These battleships being in range of this whole front in just on buy, it's insane. So powerful.
Yeah, and you definitely need it because these bases are really weak without that.
Yeah,
right. There's like this 3v1 base thing that can happen, and yeah, I definitely should have bought a battleship in the top left port at some point, like either this turn or like over the next couple turns. I think I tunnel visioned a little bit too much on the airport denial and didn't realize just what I was setting myself up for over there.
Mm-hmm. You also buy a copter here. I'm thinking it is to like help deny this for later, because it's not going to do much over here, maybe.
Yeah, it was to maybe steal back some of those properties. I don't know. Yeah, again, I feel like I bought a couple, because even like if I buy a battleship this turn, it's almost too late, because there's 3 artillery that can almost be in range of the port next turn. There's like 4 tanks over there, and the battleship only hits one thing.
Yeah. Yeah, true. Yeah, it's gonna be hard to try to flip any of these. It's also really interesting because all 4 of these ports, they're not only really strong on buy, but they can also swim through the water, and it's all connected. So they can kind of shift around, as Talos has been doing with this battleship and this cruiser. And also, it is locking your base. I just realized.
Yep. There's actually there's a couple things that I don't think I ever asked Talos about this, but he also dropped an infantry on my lab there, right in front of the 2 base, which, if you look at it at first, it's like, well, why, right? Like, there's so many things there, this just dies.
Yeah.
But if I actually, because I have 2 labs, right? I could let that one fall.
Mm-hmm.
If I do let that fall, I actually might not ever get it back, right? Because of the battleships everywhere, because there's like copters now flying in. It would be hard for me to take that. And so that would make this game, it would make this game about a single point, right? About my single remaining lab. And if you look at where my other lab is, I have no control over that region.
Yeah, it's really hard to defend with all this pressure over here. This looks like a really good turn from Talos, honestly. Like your position, like you got really nice objectives, but somehow Talos has also been trying to break them up in a different way. Because this one is pretty crazy because he has the 2 black boats as well. There's no way you're breaking through this cruiser. You can have both black boats heal up this infantry, and you can only hit that infantry with infantry, and it'll do like 2 damage, and then you can just heal back. And this battleship is locking this base, or you can't build vehicles there. You'll only be making infantry. You got this other battleship also, which is also in range of that single tile which you'd be using to interrupt. So pretty insane. And this one is also in range of any artillery trying to lock the lab.
Yep. Yeah, and so I agree. I really like the move here, and I think Talos' next turn is actually going to be even better. And just to be clear, I'm giving up a ton trying to deny these airports, right? Like I'm throwing away some units in charge just to get charge so that I can like get a power on this turn. And I'm giving up some captures, and I bought a lot of early recons, so I'm actually, one of the things with Sturm is like you're supposed to be ahead on income, and I'm tied on income,
Yeah.
right? And I'm actually going to fall behind on income next turn because Talos is still capping some properties and I'm not. But I do
Here
get the
comes
power. Yep.
Boom. Oh, and it lands here.
Yeah, which is fine, right? The black boats can help repair the other units, but I do
You
get the
get the
roll. I KO the infantry. I think it was a favorable roll. If I remember, it was like 80% or something.
I'll have to look it up, but yeah, if that was a roll and it kind of like relied on that, that would have been pretty crazy. You do get to kill that infantry though, and you sit on the lab just to be like, don't get any more infantry here.
Yeah, I think that one was also just to like block the copter from hitting my copter. There's like a chance that could happen.
Okay.
Like the battleship can maybe KO the rockets.
Yeah, because Talos is definitely getting that super this turn.
Yeah.
And that is going to hurt. You make a medium tank over here. Classic panic buy medium tank, which makes a lot of sense. There's a lot of artillery though. So it's gonna be complicated.
And again, this is where like I definitely should have just bought the battleship. I bought the black boat. I was like, all right, this will like stop the infantry from parking on here for a turn. I can like hide my infantry from the super, so that they don't take that global damage. And then that black boat will actually go and repair my other black boat, which is gonna like have no fuel left after next turn.
True.
But I think that was maybe a pretty big mistake. And I think I get.
If maybe you bought like if you maybe didn't make the medium tank and black boat, maybe no, you need more. You'd have to like make an infantry here, infantry, and then battleship.
Yeah,
but there's also like 4 artilleries, so.
Right, I like needed the battleship a couple turns earlier.
Yeah.
So.
Now, Talos has a super. He didn't get the airport, which I'm sure he was not very happy about. But he's definitely shooting at everything that he can. And I bet he's gonna buy an anti-air? No, a neo tank. I was thinking a medium tank. A neo tank. It's nice. Gonna try to take out your port.
Yep, I didn't really prepare for this well enough. I sort of knew it was there. I maybe discounted the fact that there were actually 3 tanks in the center up there, and so I get punished a good bit on this turn because those tanks. It's also kind of a choky area. There's like not a lot of space, and so those tanks just sort of stand in the way, and now I can't go and save my port. Right, that black boat is actually just going to get shelled. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, no, this is this is definitely an arty party if I've ever seen one.
Yeah, this is a like 3v1 base situation. And because again, I've been spending so much time denying the airports, I don't actually have a similar pressure anywhere. So at this point, I've like achieved the thing I wanted to achieve. I stopped the airports. And now I have to figure out how to leverage some form of advantage. Like this is an advantage, but I have to figure out how do I leverage this?
It's crazy because you guys are equal income. You've definitely fallen behind the unit value after this super, but also you have this battleship here, which it just isn't doing much because all that army just kind of shifted elsewhere. I guess you could bring it over here and kind of lock this down, lock this base like he's been doing to you. But I was also thinking that, always it gets tricky when you're playing against Sturm. You have to be like kind of positioning specifically to bait the meteor. But once Sturm uses the meteor, it's like, okay, now it's free reign. And so he can do this. Now he can make this big ball of artillery and infantry or like buy this battleship and neo tank without having to worry for that meteor, at least for like a turn or two. So that was a big turn by Talos.
Yep. It's also worth noting that I think I repair a ton of units on turns after the super. There's this. But so these global damage powers, they deal 2 damage to all your units, and if you have an army that's all full HP units, it does 20% damage. Like 20% of your army in damage.
Yeah.
If you have a whole bunch of weakened units, like take the extreme case where all of your units are at 4 HP. Right? Like that's never going to happen, but let's just pretend your entire army is at 4 HP.
Yeah.
The super now does 50% of your total army value.
Yeah, which is insane.
Right, and so like these stacked supers, if you have a bunch of weakened units lying around, it actually deals a higher percentage of your total unit value in damage. And so I don't know how noticeable it'll be. Like even here, like I'm joining tanks, right? And there's a couple reasons for that. Again, it increases
you had no
the
funds.
like right.
Yeah. You couldn't buy infantry, so you had to join there.
Well, what it does is it increases the average unit HP, so like reduces the percentage of damage that it deals. It also lets me like teleport funds, so I can join units on the bottom left, build units in the top right, and those funds have like appeared on the other side of the map. The usual disadvantage with this is that you have less units, right? That's bad. But I actually have 2 more ways to make units than Talos does, right? I have 2 extra airports, and so I can actually join a bunch of units and still be ahead in unit count. And you actually see this here. Like I'm joining units, but I still have 5 more units than Talos.
Yeah, true. You can definitely get that air spam going to keep having that unit count difference. He also takes out your port, so that battleship would have been nice to have, but it definitely was too late now.
Yeah.
I mean, I wonder if it withstands like 2 arty shots, but it's probably not even worth it because it just drains too much funds. And there's more
I definitely
coming.
I had to buy it like earlier than the turn where it gets put under multiple artillery.
Another one. And now he's gonna take your port. Oof. Oof.
Yeah, and so at this point, I'm just planning to, because again, I do have base plus airport for defense, so I can like just do heavy tank every single turn, do copter every turn, and that's kind of hard to break, right? That is hard even for this army to crack through.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, medium tank
Talos,
copter every single turn.
Yeah, and Talos doesn't have a comm tower, and you're fighting Sturm defense, so it's kind of hard to break through that.
But can you even break through this?
No, I don't think it's possible, or you even want to at this point. I just gotta kind of suck it up.
Because then a Drake battleship here is gonna block this. I guess a carrier doesn't reach this airport.
No, yeah, and I made sure to check for that too. Yep, so that's kind of bad. But now I'm finally starting to get like some counter pressure, right? Like, all right, you've got me in a bad place here, but we're gonna play the same game over on your one base. Right now, I'm blocking it, and again, Talos has a problem that I don't have here, right? Like I can fight the copters and the land units at the same time. Talos can't fight both. And so like I can put the copters just staring at the anti-air, and like you can't fire on them because then you lose the anti-air, and now the other copters just fly around for free.
Yeah, exactly. And this battleship can't move any further than this. It is going to be like protecting this, but now you buy your first bomber, plus this artillery is going to really help you to take this out. It's like your main army is going to be over here now, and Talos' main army is over here. But he does have like really high value ones over here, which you're just gonna like, just gonna go somewhere else. So it's gonna take him a little bit of time. He's gonna flip this one of yours, so he's gonna actually get that income advantage if he gets to get it. And this is funny. This black boat keeps doing the moonwalk. It's a stylish black boat.
Yeah, I actually have. If you watch the battleship in the bottom left, it does this little game of like step off the port. Oh, super's coming. I better go refuel and repair. Step off the port. Oh, another super's coming. I better just like
this one?
Yeah, it just spends the whole game like going back and forth from the port, or like, oh, a copter's coming to get me. I better go run back now.
Oof, yeah.
So in the top right or in the top left, again, I have to deny the comm tower, and then I'm just tanks, copters. I'm just going to deal as much damage as I can every turn, just to try to like dig into this army a little bit.
Yeah, you're getting the damage that you can. That's for free, outside of range of these artilleries.
Yeah.
But
It's
he
also a
does
little
get that part.
spooky. The lab capture in the center there. Again, I have two labs, but I
Oh, yeah.
can't let this game be about a single lab. Right, I need it to stay mixed base. That's where Sturm has the advantage
Yeah.
because I can just sort of fight everywhere, and so I was willing to like sacrifice units to stop that capture.
Yeah, also, yeah, you're right. If it becomes like, if you guys base trade too much and it becomes like, I don't know, two fronts, like a front here and a front here, and that's it, it's going to
Yeah.
be much better for Drake because much easier to
Right.
stall that than in a mixed base.
Yep.
So
Yep.
it's very interesting, the mixed base now, because it would be like, you would think that it is advantageous for a more aggressive CO, which it is in part, but if it gets to a point where it's not mixed anymore, like if you go aggro too much, it's like there's a fine balance. If you aggro too much, then it's not advantageous for you anymore. It's very funny.
Yeah. Yep. And so we see also the first mega tank in the top right, and I think this
Yeah.
next turn is a pretty important turn for me. There's a couple other things to note. Talos is doing a really good job. He's already has a magnet for the meteor in the bottom right,
Yeah.
with the the neo tank and the battleship.
Yeah, it's a pretty cheap meteor, just 2 units, honestly.
Yeah.
When his bulk of the armor is over here or over here, these two are not in range of a meteor. Also, it's much easier to bait Sturm's meteor because it has to focus on a unit
Yep.
rather than
Yeah,
like,
there's
an empty space.
there's some game you can play where if you put 2 expensive units like a knight's move away, it's like the L shape,
Yeah,
then the Sturm meteor can never hit both of them unless there's another unit that it can target.
right.
The meteor has this sneaky bonus property on this map that I didn't realize until about this turn, which is that center area, all the boats can sort of pivot from one side to the other,
Mm-hmm.
but they get blocked up in that region. They have to like stand real close to each other to do it.
Yeah,
And so it makes pivoting for Drake super difficult because the meteor just always threatens to like delete units that pile up in the center there.
you're gonna be joining more.
Yeah.
And you're gonna lock
And
again this airport, which is really funny. You got this artillery always dancing back and forth.
Yeah, so they're like trying to repair. There's 2 of them there so they can like swap out on the power turns. And you'll notice every single turn that Drake has a black bolt pointed at that base, I have an artillery pointed at the airport. The only times I move the artillery away are if there's a black boat that can't reach it, like
Yeah.
it moves too far away or something.
Oh,
Yeah, so this turn, I spent a ton of time looking at this turn, and this is really where I said, all right, we're doing this. You're not building any more units here. I'm
You're gonna
kind
lock
of
him
proud of the I'm kind of proud of the wall I found here. Like I'm not using my 8 HP copter to wall. I'm using it to block the anti-air so it can't reach my other 7
Right.
HP copter that's blocking.
that's very funny.
And there's a couple turns in here, I think, where Drake could have broken through. I think this next turn is one of them. If he uses the power and goes for a roll, like the battleship with a power can, it has a chance of KOing the infantry on planes.
Oh, you make a mega tank as well. You're like both
Yep.
under the same amount of pressure.
Yes. Yeah, it's kind of a very different amount of, it's a different kind of pressure though, because if you look,
you have the airport, but Talos can have the port as well next to
yeah,
him.
so Talos has the port, there's going to be a battleship there, but again, I have the airport, so I can make 2 units a turn, whereas Talos can only make 1.
Yeah, you also have this base locked, so he can't be making vehicles. So I guess it's like 1 vehicle, 1 infantry, and a copter.
Yeah,
So I guess
only
you're
kind of.
over.
Yeah, it's only kind of. It's also maybe worth noting that if you look at the income, I'm actually behind on income by a fair bit.
Yeah, he just flipped this one of yours, and now he is ahead.
Yeah, and I think it's only going to get worse before it gets better.
Ooh,
So
he's
I'm
sacrificing. So he's gonna get that super.
Yep. And I think even with the super, it's only a roll to free the mega tank. And so I'm not even sure if he goes for it. I don't remember.
Oof, all those injured ones. Ugh. Dropping even more. Oh, he uses the mega tank. Okay. So
Yeah.
it might have been a roll then.
Yeah, the battleship was a roll. So he goes for like the guaranteed kill on the shoal infantry and doesn't try to free the mega tank.
And now makes another battleship. This is the 1, 2, 3, 4th battleship he's made. Oof. And a cruiser.
It's also kind of funny that I have a bomber that can fire on the battleship. The 8 HP bomber against the Drake. So now Drake has the power. It's sitting at 65% defense. This deals 1 damage.
1 damage.
It deals, and it's not even like a high 1 damage. It does like 15% damage or something dumb like that.
Wow. Like, might as well just shoot at something else. Shoot at the blackboard or something.
Yeah,
that's insane. He's gonna magnet you here again because you're getting your super.
Yep. Oof. Yeah, and so now from here, I've committed to base locking. Yeah, it's actually not that bad, right? It looks real bad, but I'm 100,000 behind.
Yeah.
But I can actually find, if you look at the battleship and the neo tank in the bottom right, those are doing nothing.
Yeah.
And that's 50,000. There's a battleship in the center that's not really doing anything.
Mm-hmm.
Plus the black boats, plus the rockets. There's another like 50,000 just sitting there, actually doing nothing.
Mm-hmm.
And so we're kind of even on unit value that's doing something.
True. And you're gonna actually go for the airport, and smartly you put the infantry in the teacup to the last turn, so it doesn't get hit by global damage.
Yep. Nice. And yeah, so I think I maybe delayed that T-copter like 1 or 2 turns more than I should have. But yeah, getting that airport is how I'm gonna like easy mode take this base. This is also I've committed to sieging this medium tank.
This mega tank just doesn't die. you hit with 5 units and it's barely scratched.
Yep. There's also a couple turns in here where I'm worried about the
infantry here.
Where I'm worried about a carrier being built, because again I'm planning on just spamming bombers from the top right once I have that, and the carrier would prevent that. I do my artillery shuffle in the bottom to heal one while the other blocks.
I was checking if the tank wasn't in range, but yeah, it's not in range. Yep. And you're healing up the battleship.
Everything's sort of running back to heal.
Also, Sturm doesn't get affected by rain, right? In movement.
Yes.
So that's
a real big deal.
Oh, you shoot at that battleship. It does like no damage. And
mega
you
tanks
use the super.
Yep. So mega tanks do a surprising amount of damage to boats, but again, Drake plus super plus Drake defense on port just.
Yeah.
I think normally it's like 4 or 5 damage if it's normal, like 100% damage, 100% defense.
Yeah.
Or like normal.
I'm pretty sure it's like that. It's like half the damage of the battleship.
Yeah.
I was surprised you used the super here. Why do you decide to use it to just land on these two and not hold it?
It was almost there was some wall that I needed in the top right. I think the anti-air can't KO the 8 HP infantry on planes or something like that. There's some count up there. Okay. Or like the battleship can't kill the infantry on a forest.
Oh, and then the anti-air would come and kill the copter. Yeah, that makes sense.
Also, like, that's about as good as the power is ever going to get for Sturm. It does have this like positional advantage of it forces Talos to like make these magnets and not clump up in other areas. But I then run into this issue of, well, okay, you're just going to hit a bunch more of my units next turn, and now I don't get charged for any of those hits, and so I'm sort of like losing future powers.
Yeah. You're falling behind on income.
Yeah.
Which is and behind on unit value at the start of Talos' turn. So that's like, it's very interesting because you're both ahead in different things. Like he's ahead on income, ahead on value. I guess in positioning you have a little bit better. You have a little bit more of like dictating the tempo because you have this. You're putting this big pressure over here. You kind of warded off this pressure, and Talos' pressure is mostly just like, I guess, running away from this and trying to defend here, and trying to maybe set up a big amount of battleships and lock all of your bases. I'm not sure, but it's like it's definitely on your, like you're having the steering wheel right now of the match pretty much. Although you're behind them on other counts.
Yeah, at this point in the game, I think I was feeling pretty good about my positioning as like, all right, I've got a siege on the top right that I'm pretty sure is going to happen. Right? I'm going to get that top right airport. I don't have any. I'm not about to lose any of my bases because there's like battleship blocks everywhere, but
yeah,
I'm not about to lose anything.
No.
Yeah. And so
he's also going for your lab here, and also going for here. So this is like alarm bells ringing right now.
Yep. So this is another play. Again, like I don't think I can afford to lose either of these, and so I think I'm pretty sure I try to deny both of these. Because yeah, again, as soon as, like, honestly, if I lose that center lab, like, again, I'm not threatening to take the one in the bottom center, so I don't have any like way to recapture a lab.
Mm-hmm.
Talos also has like 4 battleships pointed at my 2 base.
Yeah.
Like,
it's insane.
And there would just be more, and so like that one now becomes hard to capture. There could be 3 black boats healing that unit every turn, just surrounding it.
Yeah, the only way would be like having a rocket over here.
Yep.
And like, but even a battleship can reach and just these 2 bases can be battleship locked. It's like insane. Just the presence in the water that Talos has here and can kind of force your hand here, and just like you're limited to building this like infantry, recon, just like low value units, I guess. But you do have the unit count upper hand here, so you're able to do these blockings. That's what unit count is so good at.
Yeah, so I'm down in income, but I do have the unit count advantage. I actually, we're still trying to lock this mega tank in.
It won't die. It's now a 4. Oof. And you also have no infantry here. This poor guy at 1 HP with like 13 fuel.
I think at one point in the game, and I'll see if I can remember where it is, I have an infantry at 1 HP with 1 fuel.
No.
Like the infantry is actually just sort of stranded.
He was starving there.
Yeah.
Yeah, healing up everything. You're going for this cap here. I think it's definitely a nice spot. Because I don't think this guy has enough firepower to deal at least 1 damage. So you're forcing one of these to attack from here, and you're gonna get a shot. You're gonna get some bit of value from this battleship.
Yep.
So that's nice.
Yeah, so I'm still like trying to put some pressure on other places in the map. My goal here is to KO that base and to not lose my other base and to not lose my labs.
You're definitely like shifting everything there. You're like going to join everything.
Yep, because if everything sort of stays the way it is right now, then I have way more airports. It's still mixed base. I think I can leverage that. Like, I'm consistently ending with more units than Talos. Even though I'm behind on unit value, even though I'm behind on income, the map is still broken and it's in my favor.
Yeah. Look at this cute little copter and cruiser. Let's see what that does.
Some copter boosties. Oh no, this is just full transport. You can like get an extra 6 squares of movement from that. Yeah.
Boom. So really trying to prevent you from taking the space. So this is like the whole focus of the match right now is here. It's like literally this single tile. Whoever can hold the space, I think like you definitely obviously want to break this and then have like you would still have it make space, right? Because he's not really threatening this space. So that'd be really great for you. If he's able to hold on and your army kind of dies away, and income stays like this, it could be really good for Talos. So we'll see who can hold it.
Yeah, there's maybe a question here, and I think I was chatting with Talos at one point, whether or not he overcommitted to the defense. Because at some point, you could imagine, what if that army wasn't there? What if that entire army was in the top left, like taking that base instead? Like, what if there were just like 2 more battleships on the left, and that whole army was just surrounding mine, and maybe that's enough to, like, instead of defending, maybe you just trade bases.
Yeah, which might have been better for Talos being Drake in this matchup to get to that base trade, right? We were talking earlier.
Yeah. But yeah, so I'm okay with playing the base defense game. I think I don't actually know. Maybe it was correct not to kill that. Just to like maybe drain some funds, and like a 3 HP mega tank, even if it breaks out, doesn't really do anything. There's actually a couple things that I'm trying to do here. So again, there hasn't been a carrier buy, and I think this is like the only reason I'm able to fight this off is because there's a lot of units here, but there's really only 2 anti-airs, right? Like, if those anti-airs go down, there's nothing else, right? There's a copter, an 8 HP copter, but like if I just have a few bombers, there's not really a way to. Like I said, there's only those couple units. I don't think that cruiser ever fired on anything this whole game. I don't actually remember that.
It has all 9 shots.
Yeah, it did zone out pretty well. So like it did something, but I don't think it ever actually fires on a unit.
It boosted his copter too.
Yep, it's a very expensive copter transport.
He also joined some copters here.
Yeah, so the reasons I joined copters, again, I can like teleport a whole bunch of funds to the other side of the map. I also am doing this to like keep up on fuel, because if you hover, like my 8 HP bomber in the top, just near that base.
Yeah, 20 fuel.
Like that's at 20 fuel.
Look at
after
this guy.
The power. Yeah, 2 fuel, right?
2
like,
fuel. 1 fuel.
After the power, that bomber goes down to 10 fuel, and then after the normal fuel drain, it's on 5 fuel.
Oof,
so I have 1 turn with that. That's actually one of the reasons I left it where it is. It's so that it could get hit by an anti-air. Like, I actually wanted this to get hit, because otherwise it's just going to crash and I don't get any charge for that. But if it just gets tagged by the anti-air, I get a whole pile of charge.
Yeah, that makes sense. But then he's also getting charged.
Yeah, but it would have to, like... Yeah, he's already almost got his power.
True. If you have, like, a bunch of injured, low-fuel units. It's like a paper wall. It's so easy to punch through. But you do have more units, though. Like,
yeah,
it makes it really
like
awkward.
The follow-up for this turn, I think, looks pretty good. So, like, you get to break through, but then again, if I just can kill these 2 anti-airs, then I sort of can run free. And so another thing here is getting the power instead of the superpower is actually a kind of a win for me. I'm pretty sure that Talos needed to use the power in order to free this base. But because I don't think the anti-air can actually kill the bomber unless you use the power.
Oh, because he sends the copter. Okay. Oh,
yeah, and like you need the 2 shots to kill the infantry, and so I'm pretty sure that he needed the power to free the base. And I knew that, and I was like pretty sure he's gonna break it free. But that means he's used the power now, and so that's 1 less super I have to fight.
Yeah. And you can also
And,
take attacks now without generating charge to
yep.
Drake.
Yeah, and again, the meteor is still doing something here in that, there's two battleships
Yeah.
floating in the center that, they're pointing at a base of mine, but they're not really doing anything.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
It's definitely, I mean, it does help to make it really awkward for you to sustain this attack, because if this is limiting your production, then it's hard to reinforce. And it somewhat looks like Talos is being able to hold this base. I mean, there's not a whole lot of healthy, strong units from you here, except like, yeah, you have a bunch of copters. So if you can take these two anti-airs and copters, then your copters can keep surrounding the space. But
yep.
he definitely needs
Yeah.
a carrier, right? A carrier would be really strong here.
Yeah, I think the carrier locks it up. If he even this turn is getting close to too late. But right, I have
Boom.
the top corner airport unlocked as well,
Oof.
and so now
Yeah.
we're just playing the bomber game, just
Bomber.
every single turn.
Bomber looking at the base is, yeah, danger.
Yeah,
And at that point, it's like you're only holding onto a base to have the base, because it's not even producing anything, because you're just having a mega tank there to sustain the bomber attack. So you're just like paying extra money every single turn to repair a mega tank, but not really building anything. It's more so preventing the other one from having it. It becomes really complicated.
yeah.
But
There is this.
having a carrier would have like denied that whole thing.
Yep. Right. So the other reason to hold on to it is like the battle. There's multiple battleships pointing at the base area. So
Mhm.
like if those fire every turn, then that can make it worth it. If you ever get two mega tanks, right? Like then one mega tank can free the other mega tank. It makes it much harder for the wall.
Oh yeah.
And so I think we do get a second mega tank, and maybe it is this turn, because this is I'm like one turn away from having the bomber stream in. My walls have gotten a little too paper thin.
Look, I found them. This is your 1 HP, your 1 fuel,
yep.
1 HP infantry.
which, and I don't know if this was an accident or not, but he is one step away from a city, so I think I actually get to save him.
That's true. I guess you could also like join. No, but yeah, that's really funny. And you have this other mega tank as well coming, which was made over here. So that's gonna really help out with dislodging this whole thing. It literally is like the whole focus is right here in this corner. Everywhere else is a little bit like
we've got all these like nice handshakes everywhere else. It's like,
Yeah.
all right, I won't fight you if you don't fight me. Like,
there's like handshakes, and there's like stuff that is happening because of this. Like this is helping to defend this. I mean, you're right. Like this could have been up here, but again, the meteor could also just land on all the battleships. It makes it really awkward for Drake, right? I guess having that navy, like he would want to have it all together, which would be ideal against, I don't know, Max or Andy or whatever. But here it's like you land one meteor in like 6 battleships, and Drake is crying in the corner.
yeah, there's some sneaky value to having the meteor preventing a siege like this.
Mm-hmm. Oh, the low amounts of damage sometimes is just so funny. Battleship
Sturm,
copter-
especially with a power.
Yeah. and no comm tower.
Which is actually, so,
Ooh.
one of the reasons I wanted to deny the comm tower, and I didn't know this at that point, but if you replay this part of the game and Drake has a comm tower, I think I just lose that base. Like, I don't think I can hold on to these walls. There's so many turns where it's like, all right, this is like a 90% certain wall that if you have a comm tower, it just breaks for free.
Yeah. That's crazy. And actually the mega tank does break free.
Yep.
And he makes another mega tank. But he doesn't put it right next to it. So they can
Right, so I can
still be
still
locked
block
in.
it off. I think that is one of the things you want to do when you're trying to protect this base, is like have them sort of touching so that one can always free the other. It doesn't have to be right next to, but like where the 8 HP tank is, if the mega tank's there instead, then
Yeah.
the mega tank can clear a path for the other mega tank.
Yeah, and you start making a little train. This reminds me of, I think it was you.
Yes, that was also it was a
the
medium
final
tank chain for that one.
Yeah, yeah, it was a medium tank chain, and then there was a mega tank, which was like the leader of the train or something. That was so funny. The final of the, what was it? The Quack Cup.
Yep,
Two?
that was the Quack Cup.
Quack Cup. I can't remember which one it was.
I think it was the second one. Yeah,
Okay.
the fog mixed base
Yeah.
fog one.
That was so funny. But yeah, true. Like if you have them together, then you can, like, this one would break free, and then the other one can move again. You can keep making more mega tanks or whatever.
Yep. So a couple of things that I'm thinking about on this position is that, again, there's a lot of units there, but there's only one anti-air. And so if that anti-air is no longer there, or it's damaged, or, then there's nothing to fight my air units. There's like a couple of injured copters that I can also kind of get rid of. But the bombers are getting increasingly free.
Yeah.
It's also worth noting that the Talos is keeping this constant threat in the bottom left for capturing that airport.
Yeah, I saw you just moved this artillery.
Right, which makes it a little like tricky for me to like step away for now, because then I have to be worried about, okay, I got to go right back. Here I did it because the copter can actually interrupt. So I have that 9 HP copter that's sort of babysitting for a turn.
That makes sense.
But like, Talos is requiring me to keep units to protect that airport. He's also building another wave of infantry and artillery and copters that are coming from the left. So there's this whole fight going on in the top right, and while that's going on, there's another wave of like 10 plus units that's coming in to, crash into the right, which could also just start attacking that base. So I'm like, I need to play defense over there, but also stop them from pivoting over. And so this mega tank is now like trying to hold that center area a little stronger.
Yeah, you can't shift these guys back.
Yep. I also have to like protect the lab that's sitting there, because there's an infantry watching that. There's so many little threats everywhere on the board. Like,
True.
A lot of this game is about that single base, but there's just like a whole bunch of other things that you need to pay attention to. And this whole time I'm still behind on income. Still down on unit value.
Yeah, that's crazy. Behind on income, unit value, but ahead on unit count.
And I think at this point, there's no hope for this top base. That
You got 3 bombers already.
Yeah, there's 3 bombers. Even if you buy a carrier here, it's too late, because now you'll always have at least 2 bombers left, right? Like if the carrier kills a bomber every turn, there's still 2 more.
Yeah. You'll need 2 carriers.
Yeah, you do, and there's just like not enough time to do that, because you have to buy the carrier and then step off
And then move it, yeah.
Right. So like that takes 2 extra turns, and now there's like 3 bombers you can't kill every turn. But we do see the carrier.
Yeah.
Yep.
And
but even here, you can see the positioning is like a little awkward, where those battleships can't point at the base.
I was literally about to say that. Like,
yeah, and
this
that's
being
because
so
of the meteor.
separated.
Yeah.
I guess the meteor is this one. Because these 3 are clearly being very stretched apart.
Yep.
So maybe it could land here, like a normal power.
Yeah, I believe the meteor ends up hitting the double battleships if I get it this turn. There's also another.
Go ahead.
There's another thing that Talos. Oh no, it hits the 9 HP infantry. So it hits like rocket cruiser battleship. I'm pretty sure.
Oh. Yeah. That makes sense.
There's another thing that Talos does that's really smart, and that I've actually won a lot of games against folks who don't do this. When you put a magnet for the meteor, like let's say that 4 HP infantry for Talos wasn't there, the one next to the rocket. That's actually really important for that to stand there, Because if my tank can sneak up and be like a part of this meteor strike, it subtracts value. It says, okay, now I'm going to add up all these unit values minus the tank value. And that either means you need to commit more things to the magnet, or the magnet just goes somewhere else, right? You can sort of like interrupt the magnet by tossing infantry in the way, or tossing a tank or a recon or something to like mess up the calculation of the magnet. And
Yeah,
so
say if this guy was over here, no, and then you bring the tank, you put it right here.
Yep. And so Talos is not only like making sure the meteor hits somewhere that's off on the bottom of the map, he's also making sure I can't step in the way and interrupt it, which I'm actively trying to do, right? Like that's why that tank was there, was to maybe make the magnet a little harder.
Yeah.
I think at one point I put like a T-copter that's like in the middle of all of Talos's units, just so that the next turn it could maybe interrupt the magnet.
You also move off this bomber from here. I want to see.
Yep, because the only unit that matters here. Yep. So,
but then
it's not as important to KO the mega tank. I just got to kill that one anti-air, and now bombers are free. So, I mean, there's a carrier, but
even so now this carrier's gonna kill one.
Well, is it though? Right? Because here, if the carrier just fires, now it's staring at 2 more bombers. Right? The carrier almost needs to like run away a little bit.
Yeah, I guess you're right, because then it can get shot by the bombers. Oof, tricky stuff though. Also, update on our guy. He's officially out of fuel, but he reached the city.
He made it to the city. Yeah, I remember that one specifically. There's a lot of units here. I think I only lost like 2 copters to crashing, and like I lost a black boat to fuel.
Wow. Oh, look at this black boat.
Yeah. I tried to pay attention and like join units. One of the nice things you'll notice for a lot of these joins is I'll have like a freshly built bomber. It'll fly 1 turn, and then it'll get hit by a power, and so it'll have 50 fuel, or actually have like close to 30 fuel, right? Because like you drain 5, move 7, cuts in half, drain 5 again. But then I'll also have like a 2 HP bomber that's got more fuel, but just like got hit by a carrier or by an anti-air.
Yeah.
And so now I join my super low HP, high fuel bomber with my high HP, low fuel bomber, and you end up with close to a normal bomber.
Yeah. Yeah, the fuel drain here is definitely...
Yeah.
It's not a huge thing, but it's definitely affecting a few of your units and some of that decision making. And as we say that, this artillery from Talos down 4 fuel, wow.
Well, that one's been on a journey. It started off on the strong side. So.
This one's probably like the very first one that was made over here, and that's been like, going on a whole adventure. That's crazy.
Yep.
So it looks like now he's trying to really solidify this pressure onto the space, but it is only infantry and artillery, and this mega tank can, and just a few heavy tanks and copters can scare this all away. Because you're also putting some pressure down here, so you can't just like give up everything. Has to kind of be a little bit split. It's gonna be really tricky to effectively put pressure onto the space. That airport is really like saving you, honestly.
Yeah.
If it wasn't for this airport.
Yep. Yeah, and like even all the unit joining I'm doing, the only way I can keep up with unit count is by like making sure that I build a lot of air units and stuff.
Yeah, also this is definitely like you won this area now, because there's just not there's not any more units from Talos, right? There's no anti-airs that you were taking out. There's just very few units. You have all these like injured stuff, but you have like 4 bombers. You have 4 artillery pointing at the base. So
yep.
definitely,
yeah, I actually
boom.
I kind of like my play here. So I KO with the bombers, and then my artillery are onto their next duty, which is clearing that port. And so
yeah,
I have this really cute formation of, all right, I'm just going to set 4 artillery pointing at this carrier. pointing at this port, and because of how uh, because of the units that Talos has left, and like where I've placed my air units are like in carrier range, that like 5 HP unit can only be hit by the mega tank, so the mega tank can't get to my artillery. So like there's this like super solid wall and just like 4 artillery pointed at the port, and that's actually enough to do some damage.
Oh yeah. 4 artilleries. I mean,
There's actually there's a couple other threats here that I need to watch out for. So you'll notice I put the T-copter right above the battleship down there. That's to like help interrupt a magnet. In the bottom right. I'm also, that bottom carrier can actually airport lock my 2-base airport.
Yeah.
And so if I don't build a bomber there, the carrier can just step and like stare at that airport for free.
Yeah, it does it from. Oh, I have to be on these C tiles. 2, 4, 6, 8. Yeah. Yeah, you had to build this bomber this turn.
Yep. And if I. And so this is a thing that's happened to me before. This like double carrier. One carrier covers the blank space of the other carrier.
Yeah.
Between those and the battleships, my 2-base is actually like kind of weak. I don't actually have any real units over there. I've got like a bomber and a copter, and then everything else is on this like top corner.
You know, you could put this carrier here and this one here, or something like that. This one on the reef, and they'd be doing that. They'd be covering each other and logging the airport. That's pretty crazy. Plus the cruiser. Don't forget about the cruiser.
Plus the cruiser, yes. So there's some amount of the next few turns where I actually have to like defend those shoals, and because it's not even just like the carrier can stand there. There's a lot of black boats around that can hop on the shoals, can drop off infantry, can block for the carriers. So I have to worry about like defending my 2-base, because now there's no safe spots here, right? These carriers are covering each other and completely denying air units from this side of the map.
Yeah, they're not reaching the airport, but yeah, they're covering each other. I was gonna say that you ended up finally getting the city after this whole little skirmish. So you're evening out that little income disparity. But now that this has been won overall, this area, like there's gonna be no land reinforcements in this area whatsoever. Like this is the nearest or this one, and they're just not gonna be able to reinforce. So these guys are all stranded, and it's gonna kind of die out. So you're gonna be able to reclaim all of this in the next, I don't know, 10 turns or so, because these guys are so injured. So it's gonna take them forever, but still, in the long term, it should pay off economically.
Yep, and this is like the siege has finally ended. I think it was 7 or 8 days of sieging that base, and like some paper thin walls, and and now the base is dead. That, you know, I'm guaranteed to capture it, and now it's okay. I need to not lose my 1 base in the top left, and I need to like make sure I have enough to defend my 2 base, because it's a little spooky. And again, if you look at the lab situation, there's kind of infantry pointed at all of my labs. The black boat can like land and drop off at my 2 base lab. There's an infantry in the center over there. I still don't really have a way to capture the center lab in the bottom, because there's a rocket pointed at it, and there's a heavy tank that I can't answer.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's looking good for you because you flipped this and you're gonna have some control. Talos is like, okay, I need to make something happen, but he definitely has other areas of control. He has the water. It's definitely forcing your hand here. It can get very tricky really fast, and all this water units. There's 2 cruisers, 2 carriers, 4 battleships, although 2 are injured, and 2 more. There's 6 battleships. Whoa. Really?
Right.
Wow, that's crazy.
Which is why I think I actually KO'd a battleship at one point with a tank. Maybe.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I skipped over, but yeah, it was a tank that killed that 1 HP battleship.
Yeah. But yeah, and if you look at the unit value, I'm still down by a lot, But
Hmm.
again, if you just like add up a bunch of those battleships that aren't pointed at anything, or the carriers, I'm
The
actually
cruisers.
kind of ahead on unit value that actually does something.
Yeah, I guess you're right because this is like 30K. Each of these are another 30K, so you got like 90K there already. Each battleship is almost another 30. So yeah, easily like I don't know, 200 or so are just like here in this area, like the vast majority of the value.
Yeah,
And then you have this double mega tank, just like not letting these artilleries accumulate and just like taking out that unit count. You've always had this base locked by a battleship. This game is just ridiculous.
yeah, right.
It's
I've
been
taken fire. I've just
it's
sort of
the
accepted.
there's
Yeah,
so many battleships logging different bases. It's just insane. You got one logging over here of Talos. You got this base always has been logged. Almost the airport. Like this bomber can only move one tile off the
yep.
airport. Like, he could also
Right.
log this base as well.
If you check the range of the carriers, I think that's the only safe space for the bomber. Like,
They
like
were like, "You're not getting out of there."
yeah. Like I guess I could have said, oh yeah, there's the anti-air down there as well. So like, this was like the only square that bomber could could move to. Like maybe I could have gone a little further if I wanted, but I didn't want
I
to send it like all the way down.
yeah, I think it could reach this city right here. But
Yeah,
yeah, like what good does it do there? No, you kind of
right.
want it here. You want it to have presence right here.
And again, here's where you see the meteor is making a pivot to attack my left base really difficult because how do you get those battleships through that tiny narrow waterway?
Okay, yeah. So if he wants to shift all these over here,
Yeah, you kind of have to send like one at a time over the next few turns.
he needs to do what you were doing. He needs to join and teleport the funds.
Well, and that actually it doesn't work as well. There's maybe a couple turns where that might have mattered, but Talos just doesn't have enough places to build units.
Hmm.
Like I have because now he's down a base as well. So I have like +4 places to build units compared to Talos.
True. Yeah,
But
three
I guess
bases and five. Oof.
if you count the ports, it's maybe a little closer, but you can't build multiple battleships every turn. Whereas like I could build multiple copters.
Yeah, and you have the same amount of ports as well. Oh, I guess you have three, but you're capturing this one, so.
Yeah.
But oof, they got this whole armada here in the middle.
Yep. All
But
all sta- all spaced out like just well enough to not get hit by a meteor.
is this rocket made to go over here and log this lab?
Yes. Yep. that is exactly what that rocket is for. Because again, that lab is like kind of threatened.
Yeah, no, for sure. There's
And
just so much presence here.
yeah. So
And
I
plus,
like
you
needed.
got like this space as well. Like he could also invest over here, and because you do have this space, but it's gonna take a while to start pumping out stuff. But
Yep. Lots of unit joins.
you're gonna try to break through here, and you do so very, very effectively. You break through, you kill the last artillery or healthy one. There's a few battleships, but you just have way too many units. You got all the army that was over here sieging is now reaching over here, so you're gonna have way more units than Talos.
Yeah, and this is where this kind of like spam mega tank defense only works if you do it before you're locked. And so there was like a couple turns before this, even on like that initial wave of units as they swept by, I like had the medium tanks and the copters before that wave got there. Whereas Talos's base just couldn't afford to have those units. There's no airport to back it up. And so I got to hit that base when there was only like 2 units in the area.
Yeah. Now you're gonna get shelled by some battleships. There's those two anti-airs. He's also forced to do this, no, to build like a single anti-air every single turn. Maybe fighters. But yeah, honestly, this airport is so strong. It's crazy to me that there's this port and base being like of opposite armies.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
they're just like shaking hands to each other.
I maybe should not have lost that. That felt like a mistake when I was looking back through the game. Like I'm pretty sure I could have held on to that port if I thought ahead a little bit. You'll also notice like there's a lot of knight moves, battleships. It's like you could there's some puzzle like have the knight hit every tile on the chessboard. If you like start from the battleship on the port, it's like knight move, knight move, knight
Oh
move.
yeah, true.
Yeah.
Oh, that's where the meteor baiting thing comes.
Yep. Yep. So there's
Interesting.
and that's the reason for that is that now the meteor can't hit any pair of those. No. And even like the mega tank's a part of that. So
Oof. That must have been so frustrating. But yeah, like he's trying to shift all these naval units over here to try to all in win this base. But he's also giving you room now over here, like you're able to breathe now. Like this lab is no longer under that much of a threat as it was before.
Yeah.
And you're also like again like over the long term, over the next couple of turns, you're gonna be getting this income, and it's a lot. There's 5 cities that you're gonna be flipping plus the other com tower. So you're just now ahead on income, but that is gonna start to go down.
it is
heavily.
maybe worth noting that this is the first time I'm ahead on income since the capture phase ended, which it was like 20 what I don't know 15 turns ago or something.
Yeah, no, that's insane. But Talos clearly like has to do like has one more last play. Like I have to do something to turn this around, because if it stays the same, you can just like defend, and you're gonna win overall because you're gonna have so much more income.
Yep. Yeah, the game at this point feels pretty much locked up.
Yeah.
I do use the meteor here and just a normal power.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason for this is that I wanted to make the next turn magnet be harder, and Sturm can kind of chain powers, right? I can use a power and then follow it up with another power. And so
the fact that you needed 2 bombers and 2 copters to take care of us
during a power, right? Like
Yeah,
I have normal damage here.
That's insane. Yeah, you can definitely change those, chain those Sturm powers. They're like, I think, what are they, 6, right? That's the power, and then 10 is the super.
Yeah.
So.
And it does usually mean that like you got to get a bunch of good hits. And this is later in the game. I don't know how many powers I've used, but that Sturm power gets real expensive.
Oh yeah.
And like Sturm normal power is almost as much as Drake's superpower.
Yeah. You go here to lock in this airport because the Blackwood is in range.
Yep. Almost the entire game. There was like, in this entire game, there's maybe like 1 or 2 turns where Talos doesn't have the ability to like put an infantry on that airport.
Yeah. So the RDUs were free for like a turn.
Right.
And now we see that income difference now really starting to notice, and he gets that super, which is gonna hurt, of course.
How much did that do? Is that like 100,000 damage?
You're at 450. Yeah, 100 in damage. That's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Pretty strong.
Oh, I forgot about this part of the game. The cruisers actually do get to fire on something.
Oh yeah, look at that.
Although that is the second cruiser. The first cruiser is still just hiding in the corner, which I don't think it ever gets to fire on.
This one has been boosting around copters, and it's been baiting meteors.
Yep, it's taken 2 meteors.
It has literally all the ammo full.
Yep.
But yeah, funny, you also put the mega tank here on the port, as in like you're not getting another battleship on that base.
Yeah, I was like, maybe I can stop this.
Yeah. And now you get the.
Because this is the part where Drake gets to feel a little bit of the pain that I did with bombers that deal 1 damage to Drake boats. Now Drake bombers have 80% attack against Sturm, 50% defense mega tank.
Yeah. I mean, this army is still a force to be reckoned with. It's a pretty big army. Well balanced one. But you
Yeah.
do have a lot of mega tanks, so you can probably ward this off for at least a few more turns. And you're gonna get these two cities very soon.
Yep.
Oh.
Yeah, and at this point in the game, I'm pretty sure we were chatting that it's kind of over, but let's just throw units at each other because that's fun. I was still spending a lot of time looking at what's the best way to like get my power this turn. So I was still putting a decent amount of time into the turns. It was a fun game, and that's I didn't want to have something go wrong at the last minute.
Yeah, no, for sure. Yeah, but it is looking very, very one for you. I don't think Talos can do much. I mean, after landing that rock there, it doesn't have much of a it doesn't have a lot of cards in his hand. Let's say you got a good sizable armor here. You got the airport. Those fighters now are like really helpful. Wait, move the map. I'm always moving the map. I swear, in every video that I make, I would hope that that Demon Hunter that made this could like lock the map in place. So stop moving it. But you have a lot of army here. You have the mega tanks, and all the battleships are kind of dying. Oof.
Yeah, we've transitioned to the super late game defense of I'm going to build fighter and mega tank every turn.
Oh, look at this ball right here. Makes a carrier. You're gonna get the other Comtar, you're gonna get these two cities as well. You're finally having 12k income advantage. You do still have really like 50% less unit value almost. But I'm not sure that Talos can bring this around, honestly. It would require some big mistakes from you, I think, which is hard to expect from someone that plays at the top level. It's like at a certain point, you have such an advantage and such a big foot on the game that the only way to come back is if they make a mistake, like a big enough of a mistake.
Yeah, at this point, it felt pretty locked up. This is
just throwing units around.
Yep, and it still is kind of fun. I'm like down.
Yeah,
I've never felt so far ahead while down almost 200,000 in unit value.
Half a unit value. That's insane.
I've like literally almost 200,000 down, and I'm like, I can't lose this game.
That is insane. Yeah. Are you gonna use that meteor again? Let's see. Those two cities, it's gonna bring the income to 44 to 64. That's a lot. Got these 1 HP bombers shooting at 2 and 1 HP battleships. Got the meteor landing here. Just the battle of the injured stuff. And yeah, this is like all super destroyed. 1 HP, 2 HP, 3 HP. The only thing healthy is like a carrier, this artillery, this mega tank. So just like closing out the game and having fun. But this looks very
there's
much
not
fun.
much left at this point.
Makes another battleship. And maybe tries to go for that airport, but no. There really wasn't a way for Talos to break through this artillery, huh? Like the airport was so far away.
Yeah, and part of the reason for that was, I was throwing everything at the top right. And so, and that's another thing that maybe could have, instead of trying to defend the top right, Talos could have like given up earlier, gone to get the bottom airport, gone for the earlier attack on my top left base.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Another typhoon. He's not giving up. Okay, he did. As I say, he gives up. Wow, what a game. GG. Oof, that was a long one too. 29 days. Oof.
Yeah, well, and there were a whole bunch of, even at the end here, right? Like, you don't often see a game that this long where both players have over 50 units left.
Yeah. No, it's also interesting because when you watch the match at a glance, like just shifting through the turns, you might pick up on some stuff, but watching it like this in detail, I definitely was able to pick up on a lot. And with your insights, and like I was thinking before, like, oh, he resigned because okay, he lost the base, but he's also down like 20k. So more specifically, it was because of day limit, because it's a tournament game. It's like, okay, day 30 or day 35 was the day limit, so he would have lost. But even if it wasn't a tournament,
35, yeah.
Oh, 35. So he for sure could not have flipped enough properties to win or not lose by day capture, so it makes sense that he would resign. But then I was like, even if it's not a tournament game and there's no day limit, like, you can just sit back and keep defending like this with that 20k income difference. And yeah, you're behind on value, but that 20k is gonna very quickly rack up and make up for that difference. And then it's just like a slow push, bleed out of tiles until you would eventually win.
Yeah, there's also, and this doesn't come up very often at all, but there's a super late game. So normally if you're looking at like day-to-day COs versus power COs, so Sturm is the day-to-day CO, Drake is the power CO. In the early game, the day-to-day CO has the advantage, where, you know, Sturm is the one who, it's just better units, right? They can move farther, they have better stats. And then, but once you get to the mid game and even the late game, now Drake is the better CO because now powers are hitting more often. And so you're able to overcome the day-to-day by just like frequent powers. But there's this usually, and you don't get to this point very often, but there's this like final point in a game where you get so late in the game that powers are so expensive that it swings back to being the day-to-day COs that are better.
True.
So on top of all the other advantages, we're now in the like excessively late game where Sturm is just better CO.
True. Yeah, and also just having that income. I feel like if maybe the income was the same, then it would still be a fair fight, with like maybe less often powers from Drake.
Yeah. The sort of next steps in this game, if we were to continue, you can see the bottom right. I'm like trying to keep this as a split, a mixed space map. So while all that fighting is going on in the top left, I have this army coming down towards that weak base. So I'm like collapsing on that, and I can afford to do both of those fights at once because I can just make so many more units every turn.
Yeah.
Yeah. Can you? I'm curious. Does this show you how many times I joined during the game?
Oh yeah, let's look at the stats. I just wanted to say it's funny that you made this APC on the top, just very like campaign-ish, because this base is so far away that you had to make an APC to bring the infantry to this one.
Yep.
So you wanted to look at join?
Yes. I have.
Wow.
So I joined 33 units. So I lost 33 units by joining, and I lost 63 units by like them getting attacked.
Yeah, you joined the 50% of what was lost. That is crazy.
Yep.
And then in powers, you used 5 powers, 1 super, and then Talos used 3 powers and 4. So you used more. Well, just 1 more.
Yeah.
And actually, in generated funds, they are very similar.
I wonder. So I know in the client, the generated funds counts the money you make by joining.
Oh.
So if you join 2 like 9 HP tanks, it like adds to your generated funds like 5,000. So I'm curious if that counts that as well, because I'm pretty sure I should have generated way fewer funds than Drake for that entire game. But again, I joined like 30 units.
I was thinking that maybe it came back to somewhat even because in these last few turns you were so high up on income. Because before, like, say, let's go to like turn, day 10, you guys were similar. Then 15, you were similar.
Can you check the stats at day 15? Does it show the income?
Oh yeah. Day 10, 44 and 42. Then 15, you guys are 48 each. And then, like, he's only ahead like at 2k, 4k for quite a bit. But then at the very end, like,
Yeah,
all
that's true.
since like from here, day 25 all the way to day 29. There's like 4 or 5 turns that you're up 20k, so like it makes up for all the turns that he was ahead like 2k. But yeah, I'm not sure. I'm not sure if joining. I feel like if it would count as income, the joining, it would be much higher. I think
Yeah,
this
that might
seems
be true.
correct.
Like I said, I know the in-game client doesn't, or it does that for some weird reason.
Okay.
This seems like it counts these things in a smarter way.
Yeah. Let's look at carriers. 3 carriers from Talos, 4 bombers, 8 battleships, 6 black boats, 2 cruisers. You had 6 bombers, 1 battleship. You had 1 single battleship and 25 copters. Wow. That is a lot of copters.
That is a lot of they're stormcopters too. So these are,
Yeah. But you were building copters every single day. 25 copters. Day 29, you were literally building 1 or 2 copters every single day since you had the airports, pretty much. It's like copter,
Yeah,
copter.
as soon as I got I think the top center airport, I don't think I ever didn't buy a thing there. I think I built something every single turn. Did I skip one?
Yeah, you skipped 1, but then it looks like there's a copter sitting there every single turn.
Yep.
A fighter.
And then they like turn into fighters at the end. Yeah.
What a crazy game.
And then while I was buying them there, I was also buying like from the 2 base airport and then bombers from the top right one. So.
Yeah, I remember you telling me something about, and this was a while ago. You were saying how you were like teleporting air units, like you were joining them in certain parts of the map and then making them on the other parts as you needed them. I thought that was really interesting.
Yeah, I think that was like, so way back when I used to play on like the actual cartridge games, that was like a thing you could do, because the maps that you would play on would always just be like these huge maps that take forever to play.
Yeah.
And like we weren't playing at like a super high level, but one of the big things was getting units across the map, and bases would be like crazy forward bases, and so there would be like a ton of value in like joining these 2 9 HP Neo tanks to pop out an extra Neo tank on the other side of the map as like a surprise. So
yeah. No, yeah, that was pretty interesting. What do you think of the map?
I think this map was a ton of fun, mostly because of this matchup. I think if it was a mirror of either flavor, so Sturm Mirror or Drake Mirror, that does not sound very fun.
When do mirrors sound fun?
You know, I normally don't. I normally like mirrors more than. I'd rather sort of win a game knowing that it was like, oh yes, like, you know, it wasn't because of the CO pick, and I don't think that's the case here either. So I like this map and I like this matchup sort of specifically because it didn't feel like Sturm or Drake was correct, or like they both had pretty valid strategies to win.
Yeah.
I think that maybe global damage mirrors are less exciting, and Sturm mirrors also less exciting. but yeah, I don't know. I thought the map was really neat. I'd be curious what like Max plays like on this map, or maybe like a tier 4 game.
Max versus Drake could be.
Yeah,
because like you kind of played as a sort of Max, you know, it's a very high amount of air units. Imagine if that was Max, like plowing through naval.
Right. Maybe have a chance to like actually kill these bombers.
But you did get something from Sturm in the early game that you wouldn't have with any other CO, which is that extra movement with the recons and getting that harassment, really like setting the tempo in the very beginning. So I thought that was really interesting.
Yeah.
So I wanted to ask you the last question. Where do you think was maybe like the most pivotal moment that maybe Talos could have done something different to change things around?
Oh man, on a game that went on for this long.
Like maybe Oh, go ahead.
I'll give a couple answers. So,
Okay, okay.
and we'll see if you agree. So, I think Talos could have secured one of those two airports, um, maybe with a little more, maybe expecting them to be locked. Could have gotten the Black Bow to turn earlier, or could have held on to that bottom region with tanks a little better. Right, just like have a tank parked on that comm tower and like not try to attack with it. Just park there,
Yeah.
and then I can't place the artillery. So I think that was a big one. And then leaning into the defense just a little too hard. So trying to like save that top base without really getting anything else. You know, your options for an attack like that are to either defend hard and defend harder than you're getting attacked and be able to hold it, even though like if you end up holding it, then you're way ahead in some sense. The other option is, okay, you take that base, I take your other base. And so, I think there's a couple points where Talos could have pivoted from defense to really trying to take one of my other bases. It might not have worked just because, again, I had the airports and just a Sturm thing of being able to siege a base becomes difficult because if you ever pile on units like I did, the meteor can like break me out.
Yeah, that is true.
But I think maybe one of those.
Yeah, maybe here, like I think this is a pretty important moment where he has this army that he was using earlier, like this big ball, where he was able to secure that port, which was a really big deal. But if maybe he kind of then shifts the army, right? Like kind of scared from this stuff.
Yeah. So at this point, if Talos, instead of like putting money into mega tanks and battleships in the top right, instead buys like bombers and neo tanks from the left bases, then maybe we end up in a like trading situation.
Yeah, I was thinking maybe he could make, instead of a battleship, a carrier, and keep this army here. But I'm assuming he was scared of the meteor because it would be pretty ideal if the meteor landed here and hard to divert. But I don't know, maybe this army, instead of pulling like this to the right, it could have pulled all it to the left. And then he could have maintained this pressure onto the space. Because now he gets kind of split because you get this mega tank here and it gets super awkward. But having a carrier maybe and then the army here, and then he can start like zoning away your copters at least, because then he just moves off the moves off the carrier somewhere here, and it's just like a no-fly zone for copters pretty much. And then you would have to send these over here or just sacrifice them to the carrier all the time. And maybe he could do that, like eventually, instead of going for defense like you said, which he does, go for an all-out attack here with carrier, then maybe a battleship, and just trade the bases. That would have been really interesting to see.
Yeah.
But
yeah, but it was definitely like no part of this game felt free, even though I'm sitting there with like, 2 extra airports and like as much as I have going right for me, like this game, none of this felt free. Talos just played really well and made this, one of maybe the best game in recent memory that I've played.
Yeah, no, for sure. It definitely one of the most interesting and unique games that I've seen. I'm glad that we were able to cover it. I've been wanting to do so. I was about to say something and I forgot what it was, but I think it was very interesting. Also, the 2 different play styles. Of course, like the Navy and the air, just very unique. Everything, the unit composition, the approach, the CO matchup, and yeah, you both played like really, really well. There was like almost no flaws. And it's like, some people always ask like, oh, where were the mistakes? And it's like, at a certain point, the mistakes are like, I don't know, that kind of like decision making, because everything else is just pretty flawless, and there's so many little things that you and Talos were doing. Oh, this is what I wanted to say. And honestly, as I was following the game in real time, it really seemed like it was more favorable for Talos. There was all that navy there everywhere, base locking. There was like a point where you had like 2 or 3 bases base lock. I was like, how? What are you supposed to do now? But you managed to pull through and turn it around. It was crazy. So really great game.
Yeah, yeah, and thanks for giving me a chance to.
Oh, you got cut off there. But yeah, thanks for being here, man. I really appreciate it, and I think it was really cool to get your insight and just that in-depth analysis that I would have missed. So thanks for being here. And you have any last words, and then I'll just close out the video. Oh, you're muted.
How about now?
Okay, now yes.
Yeah, thanks for giving me a chance to do this deep dive. I think it was even helpful for me going back and seeing like, hey, why did I do that? There are a couple points in this game that, looking back, I kind of disagree on, and I think this was a lot of fun for me. And thanks for giving me a chance to go over it.
For sure, man. Well, and thanks everyone for watching. I hope you really enjoyed this video, which was a really long one, so it's like a movie. So I hope you enjoy it. And yeah, thanks to you for being here, and bye bye.